For this week, we're going to talk about artificial intelligence, what the myth is, what the hype is, and how to really use it at the fundamental level as an agent for your consumer so that you are not terrified of it and you actually might have a good time. This is Consume, the podcast for real estate agents who are tired of hearing the same old industry stuff and want to experience something completely different. Single biggest question I get asked currently from agents when I talk to them about what they're concerned about or what they're thinking about they need for their business is AI related. And so in today's episode, we're going to talk about AI, and I want to keep this as broad source as I possibly can, because when I get these questions, I think there's a lot of misconceptions, a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of fear. And I also think that there is a lot of opportunity, both in the positive and the negative. So let me tell you what I mean. The opportunity is that there's a lot of folks out there that have a lot of courses and classes and things for agents in the world of AI. Some of it is great, incredibly helpful. Most of it is not. Because when you think about artificial intelligence, they don't do a great job of helping people first understand the fundamentals of where it is helpful, what it is best used for, and why it's important to understand. And it's just become this kind of cool, hype, new buzzword that we throw around. So everybody and everything has an AI component to it. Brokerages have an AI piece to it. You've got a lot of the tools that we work with and engage with have an AI component to it. From the consumer standpoint, a lot of the portals and platforms have an AI component to it. So let's dig into this just at the top level first. Well, really, what is artificial intelligence? Artificial intelligence is nothing more than an assistive feature or function. And look, I'm not here to tell you all about what it is in terms of the actual the methodology behind it, how it works. You can Google that or AI search that if you want. But I want to give you an overview of, at 30,000 feet, what it really is to us in the day-to-day world. And for us in the day-to-day world, AI is best used as a supportive function. We keep hearing about it, talking about how it's a replacement for things, where it's going to replace jobs and replace needs and replace the number of employees companies need or certain roles. And again, maybe, sure, I don't know. Neither here nor there for me, but from the work that we do on a daily basis, it is important to know that if you view it as an assistive function, that is where you will get the most use and benefit out of it. So let's start with what an assistive function really means. When you think about an assistive function, this could be as basic in your day-to-day life as identifying certain things where it can be helpful to answer questions. And really, at the end of the day, AI is about answering questions. That's what it is. It is a call and response level system where you get to ask particular questions, and it then in the background does the work to try and provide the best answer. So what do some of those questions look like? Well, first and foremost, you need to understand how AI works when it comes to our work and our world as agents, because AI now is one of the biggest search tools used by consumers. Consumers now, and again, this number and statistic changes all the time, about 35, almost 40% of all internet search is currently being done on ChatGPT alone. 35 to 40% of all internet search is on ChatGPT alone. So that's not including Gronk or Perplexity or all these other sites and sources that there are. And that's a very big number. So the first thing that you need to understand about how this affects you is that means there's more consumers going to places like ChatGPT and asking questions in there, and how questions get asked are different. Now, we as agents are always trained. I have to make sure that I show up in a Google search. And yes, that's very important, very true. But it's becoming different, not less important, just different. So that is a part and piece. But the other part and piece is recognizing how you show up in a search from an AI provided system. And how people ask questions to Google is very different than how they ask questions in an AI platform. So when you ask questions in Google, or when you post things or comment to things in Google, what you're doing is most folks will write best running sneakers. That's the Google search they do. Best running sneakers. They talk in sentence fragments. And the internet is built in and around trying to solution around those sentence fragments to piece information together. And that's good, but that's not how people communicate when they're asking things within the world of AI. In the world of AI, they get much more specific and they're formulating real natural language conversation. So in a ChatGPT level search, they're looking for, and the sentence they will write or say is, what are the best running sneakers for somebody my age looking to get into running for the first time? That's a very different function. And so AI is a assistive tool that is now assisting this person at a much more specific level than best running sneakers. So this is an important differentiation you have to understand when you start thinking about how you show up to people, how you show up on the internet, how people find you. And it's very, very, I would like to say, urgent that you learn this portion of it and that you begin to tailor a lot of your work that you do for your marketing in and around this type of a thing. The internet is built to answer questions. So therefore, when people are doing their YouTube pages, when they're creating as an agent your SEO, your Google business page, how you show up, the most important thing is you should be doing things that are answering questions. And that is because that's going to increase the likelihood that you are showing up in an AI level search. So think of the difference between best agent in Santa Fe versus who are the best agents for me if I'm thinking about buying a second home in the Santa Fe area. Again, much more detail, much more nuanced. Artificial intelligence now is going on the back end. And yes, it is scraping all that metadata that's in Google and other places like Reddit and other social feeds and things of that nature, plus all of the interwebs. But it's scraping all that stuff. And if you happen to have a YouTube page that is answering questions, let's just say your YouTube page is clearly marked and says that you are an agent, that you're in the Santa Fe market, your Google business page shows that you're an agent in the Santa Fe market, and that in your YouTube channel, you've listed top 5 things for first-time buyers, 3 mistakes that second home buyers make in Santa Fe, right? All that metadata, all the information there is what's being scraped by these AI bots, and that is how they're surfacing the information. So I tell people the first thing that you should do is actually go to ChatGPT and ask it a question relevant to your market. Ask it that question, right? So if you happen to be an agent that is in the Santa Fe market, go to ChatGPT and say, who's the best agent in the Santa Fe market, and see what it comes back with. And then what you're going to find is a couple of those people probably are great agents. A couple of them probably are not. But what they all have in common is go look at their digital presence. Their digital presence is very strong. And they probably have a really great YouTube channel. They probably have a really good Google business profile. They probably have lots of reviews. They probably have all of the things that are necessary to be surfaced like that. And so that's the very first thing about artificial intelligence and how it affects your business currently. You've got to be able to have your world structured digitally correctly so that you're showing up in those levels of searches, because that's how the world is engaging with things. And that continues to accelerate at an incredibly fast pace. So the next thing that we need to think about is when you begin to use artificial intelligence for your own business purposes. Well, there's a couple things that you need to remember. It is only as good as an assistive, supportive function to you as the information that you give it. So there's lots of tools and resources out there that you can use between ChatGPT and Perplexity, Gronk. There's all these different things. I'm going to talk predominantly around ChatGPT for this one today, simply because of the fact that I think, and again, from my experience, it's probably one of the best general all-around functions if you're an agent just getting into using AI as a supportive tool. But again, Perplexity is a great one for research grade work. If you're doing deep research, there's a lot of great tools out there for that. But let's talk about from a ChatGPT perspective. Right off the bat, the very first thing is people are consistently concerned, and I hear this from a lot of agents that I work with and talk to, they're consistently concerned in the world of AI about their information, my information. I'm putting my information out there. I'm giving it this information. I'm doing all this stuff. Well, here's what I will say. If you are somebody that is very, very concerned with your information being out there, it's already out there. And, years ago, I used to chuckle when I worked for Apple many, many years ago. We'd have these people that were, I'd run workshops and things like that and for consumers. And you'd hear from the consumers, they'd say to me, well, Lance, I don't want to, do certain things because I don't want my information out there. And so I'm not comfortable giving this and giving that and blah, blah, blah. And they were making their lives more difficult by not utilizing certain things because they were concerned that their information was out there. And there were times in these things, I'd literally go on the dark web, like right in front of them and pull up their info and be like, here's your ABA and routing number for your bank. Here's photos of your kids. And they were dumbfounded. And I'm like, look at all of the things that you're worried about getting out there that are already out there. So I wouldn't be too worried about that. And especially from a business standpoint and setting, you really don't have too much that you have to worry about because, again, you want certain things to definitely be out there. So what I will say is this: the single first most important thing that you can do is when you use something like a ChatGPT or any of these assistive services, the first thing is get the paid version, because the paid versions of these are the ones that typically have the best results for you. If you're using a free version, they're not going to produce the same level of quality or results. So get a paid version. The second thing is really spend a little bit of time learning. And one of the best ways to learn is ask AI to help you learn the AI. You can ask ChatGPT, hey, tell me 5 things that you can do for me that would be a good place for me to start so I have a great experience with you. And watch what it tells you and then follow along with what it's telling you that it wants. Anytime that you can upload information to it to help it in your profile, give it writing samples. If you take 10 emails that you've written or 3 letters that you've written, anything that is in your writing style, anything that is in your voice, upload it so that it learns it and tell it, hey, here's 5 writing samples I want you to learn from for my writing style. Tell it about your job. Have natural language conversation with it. Tell ChatGPT, ask me questions about my job and my work so you have a better understanding of what I do and can help me. And as it goes through the process, tell it all those things, what you do, the market you work in, who your typical audience is, who you serve, how long you've been in the business. Tell it what your typical GCI is. All of this information is incredibly important. And again, the reason is because the more information you give it, the better the platform is going to be to support you in the work that you do. So that's a core starting point. And when you don't know what to do, ask it. It's really good at giving you back level information. The second piece of advice that I want to give you on this is you have a tremendous opportunity to utilize it in a way that is more than just the basics. And what do I mean by the basics? A lot of people treat it like a Google search 2.0, right? Tell me the best running sneakers. Okay, but historically, what it really wants to do is it wants you to give it a framework and a context in which to work in. And what it loves is when you tell it to act as someone, to act as a persona, because that helps it refine its way of thinking. So right off the bat, if I was going to say, let's say I'm trying to improve maybe some creative ideas for my social media posts. There's a difference that says, hey, give me 5 ideas for good social media posts. That's very different than what we call proper prompting. And what I'm going to do is, you'll see in the show notes for today, I created a literal website that we're going to give you access to in the show notes so that you can go in and for about a dozen different things that we do in the business based on how they're relatable to the consumer world, I've created and pulled the 10 best prompts for each one of those different things that we do. So there's 200 different prompts and they're searchable. So you can say and type in listing presentation and it'll pull up 10 of the best prompts for you if you're working on a listing presentation. You can say difficult buyer and it'll pull up 10 different prompts for things to work with difficult buyers. So we're going to put that in the show notes for you so you can check it out and go to it, use it as a resource, my gift to you. But prompting is really important because when you tell it to act like someone, it's where it likes you the most. So in that same scenario for social media, what I would say is, hey, acting as a top-notch social media marketing expert and a real estate specialist, tell me the 5 best posts that I could be doing right now, along with proper keywords and hashtags for those posts. And it's going to give you those. Now, keep in mind, why did I give you the first tip first about telling it a lot about you? Well, because think about how much better those posts are going to be related to who you are, right? The things that you do, the type of audience you serve, how you speak, what you would actually type in the captions. When it understands your writing style, your natural way of speaking, your family dynamics, how many kids you have, the geographic area that you live in or serve, the neighborhood that you're in, it's going to be that much better. So prompting is built around telling it something and telling it to act as something. Now, there's nuance to this, and a lot of the suggestions that you'll see that I put in that link are there because they're there to help you really get better at understanding how to prompt for the best results. I'm just giving you 30,000 foot today, like top level stuff, but it is important to know that as you go through this process, you like at the core, really want to tell it what it is that you want it to do by telling it who to act as. So let's say that you are taking a look at your financials for the year and you've got an Excel sheet with all your expenses, right? Great way for you to be able to upload that Excel sheet with all those expenses and say, acting as a financial advisor and analyst, tell me several places where I could try and cut back in the upcoming year that would be beneficial to helping me save money. And watch what it gives you back. It's going to do an analysis, but rather than just looking at the information, it's now going to take it through the lens of what would a really good financial advisor say or a financial analyst, right? It's going to look at all of that information and then give you suggestions. And so this again is conversational. So once it gives you information, you have the ability, and this is tip number 3, to refine it by continuing in a natural language conversation. So this is not caveman speak. Information bad, me no like, do better. That's not how it wants to be communicated with, right? It wants you to be able to tell it, okay, this is excellent. If it did a great job, tell it it did a great job. That's how it continues to learn, right? If something was off, say this wasn't what I was looking for. I would prefer if it was X. I need it to look more like Y, whatever that thing is. But it's how you have natural language conversation that's going to really improve that engagement. So tip number 3 is speak naturally. And speaking of speaking naturally in that, great way, especially around ChatGPT, is to use the voice section. And the voice section allows you to have a natural verbal conversation in which it's working back and forth with you. And where I really, really, really recommend this, and don't laugh, is when you're in the car driving and you want to have a whole creative conversation about thinking about something or stuff that you might be doing or trying to flesh out an idea, right? So you're driving, you went to a listing presentation. The listing presentation that you went to, it went well. They're interviewing 2 other agents, but there was certain things that seemed a little bit off. They seemed like they were concerned with, let's just say, 2 or 3 parts of whatever you were talking about, right? Here's a great thing. I typically say, look, you're going to feel a little anxious. You left that. So what a great way to, you're in the car driving, hit the button, safely, obviously, but it should be through your Bluetooth, and tell it, hey, ChatGPT, I just finished a listing presentation for 123 Main Street with this family. There were 3 things that they were concerned about. Let's talk about how I might do a follow-up with them and what things I might want to include. What do you need to know to help me kind of figure out what this should look like? And it's going to give you some information and say, well, what did you think was the best part of the conversation? What were the things that were lacking? Well, this was the best part. It was lacking on these. How do you think I should confront this or try to overcome some of these objections or concerns they had? And watch how it just goes back and forth with you, helping you flesh out what that response should look like, what might resonate with them, right? What the best way to engage would be. And what's super cool about this is that entire conversation is being, again, held to memory so that when you get home and you sit in front of your computer and you open up your ChatGPT link, now you're going to see, by the way, here was the whole conversation and here's what it said as a framework of what you should send them. So it's a great assistive tool and resource for the amount of time that we spend on the road, out in the wild, doing all the things, to have conversations about how to handle certain things, do certain things, think about things. But it is a great thought partner for you. Anytime that you can utilize it as a thought partner, you're going to have a much better experience. And for today's podcast, I want to give you one last personal tip. And that is, it's not perfect. It's not an infallible system. It's not to be used for things that we think are, don't use it for legal advice. That's not a great resource for it. Don't use it for very high level, important financial advice, right? It's not going to do your CMA for you. But you should be digging in and giving it learned information, using it as an assistive tool, because at the end of the day, there's so many things that it can help you with, help you narrow scope of focus, help you digest into, and really narrow it down on, I'll give you a couple great examples. The things that we tend to have to do regularly a lot on repeat that we don't think about, and do so in a way that is smarter so that we look better and we look more efficient. Don't take what it says, copy and paste that directly all the time into something you're sending to somebody. Because again, it does look like an AI bot wrote some of these things. You want to use it as an assistive tool to cut down on the amount of work that you have to do. So I'll give you a great example. There are things that we know that we do all the time. Home inspections would be one. We also know on a home inspection, there are consistencies that are going to come up. There are certain things that are going to be regular. There's certain things that many consumers are going to get frustrated by, worried about, they get hung up on, that are going to end up blowing up a deal, that are kind of irrelevant. They're not the important big things. And people, you know how human beings are, they get stuck on something, right? There's no GFU outlet by the kitchen sink, and they get all bent. I'm like, that's like a $8 fix. Like, it's not a big thing, but they get stuck on that. So what I've done is I have a section of my ChatGPT where I've got a project. You can create a project, and that project for me is called inspections. And it's where I upload all of my inspections when they come in before I do anything with them, and I put them there. And for each inspection, it knows, because I've told it, I want you to create for me an email that summarizes on this inspection, what are the things that are the highest cost ticket items based on the geographic area that I live in, because it knows that, for replacement or repair. What are some of the mid-level things, and what are some of the not very expensive things that should be easy fixes? And then from there, create a summary that talks about where there might be an opportunity to negotiate some of these repairs and fixes, and what are the things that should be high focus items, and what are the things that really aren't great leverage for negotiation or really all that important in the big scope of stuff. Now, it knows that I do this very often. So any inspection report I put in there, by default, it immediately kicks out a full email that says, hi, and it knows the name of the people, Bill and Cindy. Here's a quick recap with the attached report. Please know the report has many, many things in there, but these are the only two things that are the big things that we should probably sit and have a conversation about. There's some stuff in here that is just minimal, that's not difficult, right? And it does this for every one of those that I populate. So as soon as I get the report, I pop it in there, hit run, tell it, give me my usual on this, and it just spits out a great email in my voice, my brand, well-written, well-crafted, that talks about the things that should be dealt with. Here is just and you do it all the time. It's such a great tool. And what's even cooler is in that section, in that project that I have there are dozens and dozens and dozens of inspection reports. So then I can tell it, hey, I really want to do an updated newsletter, but I want the newsletter to reflect what are the most common things that we see in inspection reports that come up as the concerning items that are part of a transaction that my clients should be dealing with, or consumers should be dealing with, versus the things that come up that people get kind of bent on that aren't really that important. And then what are proper things that, in terms from a pricing standpoint, people should expect to pay for certain types of repairs like that. And it will put together a totally kick-ass newsletter for me, talking about, in my brand and in my voice, all of that using actual data from all of those inspection reports that are in that section. So again, just a great example of how you can create little projects for the reoccurring things you do to have it be an assistive service in your tone, your brand, your voice for the common things that we do all the time. And this is where artificial intelligence, when used correctly, can be an amazing assistive device, an assistive process for you. And so it's not something to be afraid of. It's not something that you need to, think it's going to replace me or replace my job. Again, we can get all 1984 Orwellian on a separate call. But I will say, for me, the amount of time it has saved me, the amount of things I've learned from it, as I've learned all kinds of new information and become a better, really a better agent, but a better partner to my clients, better educator to the agents that I work with, and better to consumers for helping them understand sort of myth versus reality in the world of real estate. I am infinitely better at the role that I have in multiple different ways because of what I've been able to accomplish in just a very small amount of time, learning some pure minimal fundamentals within the world of the use of AI in some of the daily functions. So again, not something to be feared, not something to be overwhelmed by. It's a tool. Play with it a little bit. Try a few things out, right? Even if you just said to it, hey, what can you do to help me as a real estate agent? See what it says, But the more conversational you are, the more that you engage it to understand your voice, your brand, who you are, who you help, what you do, the better it's going to be and the better the results are that you get from it. So hopefully you have found this helpful. I encourage and welcome all the questions, comments, and thoughts. And we're going to, again, give you that link. Check it out down below. I can't wait to see what you find and take from it. And again, there's a lot of stuff in there. So feel free to check it out. Not all of it's going to be perfect. Not all of it's useful. But for some of the stuff, try one or two. See what you think. Leave me a note. And don't be afraid of anything. And by the way, I'm not real. I'm actually purely artificial intelligence. I'm just kidding. Don't be afraid of it. The world is not going to come to an end. And at the end of the day, use what you can and leave the rest.